Hi everyone, I was inspired to do this video because in the space of a week, 3 different people have come up to me to ask me about cancer. And over the weekend, it seemed to be the topic of conversation as well. On Saturday, by the way, I'm in Jericoacoara on the northern coast of Brazil, a professional kite surfing destination. And there was one professional kite surfer who did this talk about healing his cancer, or how this was part of his journey to where he is now. And then yesterday it was all about raising awareness for breast cancer. So it seems to be a topic of conversation. And I wanted to give you some snippets of information, or some of the best information rather, that I share with people when they approach me directly. And that is 3 resources which can empower you to heal your body from cancer. Understand what it truly is, so you have the power to then go and implement these things and see how powerful your body is in healing itself. It's really quite incredible and empowering, and it takes all the fear away when we understand what it really is. So the first thing I'll just do is, well, I'll say I'm going to share with you 3 resources. In fact, I'll just do it now. One is the Truth About Cancer series. I'll put a link below this video. Another one is a book called Radical Remission. And another one is the Heal documentary. These 3 things will give you so much information, applicable information, which will empower you to just see how powerful your body is in healing itself. And I also want to tell you a little bit of a story, or rather the most important piece of information that we need to know in order to really take it upon ourselves to heal our own. And everyone I've interviewed, by the way, who have healed themselves of these kind of incurable conditions, such as advanced stages of cancer, or advanced stages of multiple sclerosis, or Crohn's disease, or osteoporosis, or gastroparesis, all these different things. People who have done this themselves and they've gone upon their own healing journey have come out the other end so much stronger and elevated as people. And it's just incredible. And every single one of them had to turn their back on Western medicine because it wasn't serving them, it wasn't helping them to heal. So I want to give you a bit of an analogy, because I think this is the most important piece of information that we need to know. And that is the training that is given to doctors and oncologists and most medical professionals since the year 1910, when something revolutionary happened, and not in a good way, in the field of the education taught to doctors. So before I give you the history of why that is the case, or rather why doctors are not trained in nutrition or how to help the body to heal, and why they're trained to prescribe medications which simply mask symptoms and allow you to survive, I'm going to give you a little analogy, because sometimes it's easier to have an analogy so we can relate and understand. We often hear that words don't teach. We have to experience, we have to relate with stories. So here's a little analogy. So imagine your car, which has been working for quite some time, breaks down. And you take it to your trusty mechanic down the road. Maybe you've seen them for years and years and years. And you take them to a mechanic. You hand your car over, you say it's not working anymore, and you actually realise that the fuel gauge is empty, it won't fill up. So you, very simplistic example, so you hand over the car, and then a day or 2 later you pick it up and it's drivable again. So you're driving it around for a bit, seems to be working fine, and then it starts to lose power after several weeks. This is compressing the time period because it's a car, not a human. So you drive it for some time, and then you start to realize it's losing power. And then you notice other things going wrong as well, like strange noises. And you take it back to the mechanic, and you get it back again a few days later, and it's working again. So you're driving it around again, seems to all be working, and then something else happens. And it breaks down again. You have to be rescued by the RAC or whatever roadside assistance you have in your country. You then decide not to go back to the same mechanic, and you go to a different one. And this mechanic says, here's a look inside the car, and he says, there's lots of repair work done on this, but it's not actually fixed it. It's just kind of, it's just like a temporary cowboy solution, if you like. Let's say the fuel pipe was leaking. And what they did was they put some tape around the fuel pipe. So, of course, when you get back into the car that initial time, the fuel gauge is high, the car's running, it seems to be okay. But then you start to lose power over a certain period of time because the fuel is then leaking. But then other problems are happening in the car body as well. And what you then realize is that the fuel has been leaking into different parts of the engine, which has then caused a knock-on effect. Let's say it's leaked into the spark plugs. I don't think this is possible. I'm not a mechanic. I have no idea how cars work. They're probably mechanics going, what the hell are you talking about? This is not how cars work. Anyway, that's not the point. So let's pretend that it all seeps into the spark plugs that need fire to ignite, to get the pistons firing. So what's happened is the first thing wasn't fixed properly at the core. So then it causes a knock-on effect here, which causes a knock-on effect elsewhere. This is how I view the training given to doctors when it comes to common illnesses and chronic diseases. I'm not talking about medical emergencies because they are phenomenally powerful in them. They are life-saving. They get us out of trouble. And I've got to say thank you for that for so many reasons. Family, mother, father, all that kind of stuff. Very, very powerful. What I've come to realize is when it comes to the training for common illnesses and chronic diseases, it is the same as the analogy I've just given you. They are trained to treat the symptom of a condition, not get to the root cause of why that problem is there in the first place. And this is factual. And the history is very interesting. So if you'd like to learn the history, here goes. I've been going for 7 minutes. I hope you're going to hear the history. Giant hands. So the history goes like this. Back in 1910, 108 years ago, something huge happened in the medical industry as we know it today. So prior to 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s, there were lots of natural approaches to medicine. Naturopathic doctors, medical herbalists, homeopathic doctors, oriental medicine, all these approaches to medicine. By the way, medicine back then helped the body to heal, which is a very different thing to compare with medicine today. And we think drugs are medicine when in most cases is not, because they don't help the body to heal, they mask symptoms. So back in 1910, two very wealthy businessmen, Carnegie and Rockefeller, commissioned the Carnegie and Rockefeller Foundation. And what they did was they commissioned this Flexner report. It's called the Flexner Report of 1910. And it's a preordained report. And by the way, I picked this up from the Truth About Cancer series, which I recommend every single friend of mine and family, and I've recommended it to so many people now, who either know someone with cancer or have cancer themselves. And even, I saw a friend of mine in England, in Brighton, about 2 months ago, and he thanked me again and again and again and again and again for this. The point being, it's a very valuable resource. So in this series, they talk about the history of the medical profession, which is what I'm talking about now. So Carnegie and Rockefeller commissioned this Flexner report, a preordained report, meaning that they knew what the outcome was going to be. And what it did was it got rid of all competition to patent petrochemical education, meaning it gave them free power, free reign to go and influence the course material taught to doctors at the time. So what they did is petrochemical education, but basically meaning the drugs that they were manufacturing. So what they started to do was they started pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into various medical schools throughout the USA and also the American Medical Association. Some may say they paid the American Medical Association off. And the donors from the Carnegie and Rockefeller Foundation would sit on boards of medical schools throughout the US, and they would start to influence the course material taught to doctors. So what happened over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years was the American Medical Association got on board and they started to close down the less respected, or rather the more respected homeopathic schools. And by, I believe, 1950, there were no schools teaching natural medicine everywhere. Like every single homeopathic medical school, for example, had been shut down. And this term quackery came on board, and people were prosecuted for, like chiropractors, for example, were prosecuted for practicing this new thing called quackery. And it's a created system. So What happened was, by around 1950, if a doctor graduated without a Flexner-approved degree, he or she would not get a job anywhere. And it's remained the same ever since. The training that is being given to doctors and oncologists and psychiatrists and most medical professionals is based on this Carnegie and Rockefeller medicine, if you like. And this is why when we go to the doctors, we have this almost ingrained expectation to be given a drug. So what they do is, and by the way, I've had my own experience with eczema since I was about 4 or 5 years old, and I'm starting to understand why I had it now on a more kind of out there example and meaning, create a new meaning for it. But whenever I was growing up, or whenever I had a flare-up, for example, I would go to a doctor and I'd almost have this expectation to be given a steroid cream or an antibiotic or a terrible harmful moisturizer, which has more harmful ingredients in it than you could possibly imagine. And that's what happened until I stopped using steroids around mid-20s because I started to lose pigment in my skin, and you can see it where I've overused steroids. And it can also lead to topical steroid withdrawal syndrome, which is when you become one giant flaky mess because your skin becomes dependent on steroids. Very harmful drugs. They may appear to work in the short term, but long term, really, really harmful. So thankfully, I developed some kind of consciousness around this around my mid-20s. But when I discovered this history of the medical industry, which is in episode 1 of The Truth About Cancer, everything changed. It was like the biggest aha moment known to man, for me, because I'd always been very, very curious about this. So very, very interesting when I found out that there's a solid history behind why doctors aren't trained in nutrition, why oncologists aren't trained in nutrition, why psychiatrists aren't trained in nutrition. Everyone goes through a system which we now know is outdated, ineffective, and corrupt. So we still worship these doctors thinking that they've gone through 6 years of medical school, so they deserve all the credit in the world. And by the way, this is not to discredit doctors because they're amazing people, but they go into the profession for really amazing reasons. And I've got personal friends of mine who are doctors, friends of the family who are doctors. The thing is, we as the end user must be aware of their training so we are more informed to make better decisions about our own health. And now I want to talk to you about something called the nocebo effect. So most of us are familiar with the placebo effect. This is when we take a sugar pill, a pill with no no medication in it, and it's a blank pill. So we take it and we think that it's going to solve a particular challenge, a health challenge or a symptom of some kind. So we take it, and what happens with the placebo effect is the mind thinks we take the medicine which is healing us, and the mind believes that it's a medicine, and it triggers the body to secrete all these different chemicals inside the body, our own pharmacy of chemicals inside the body, all these healing chemicals and hormones that trigger the body into healing. By the way, the human body is constantly healing. We were born healing, and we just need to step out of the way and allow the body to do what it is ultimately designed to do. So when you think of it this way, it's actually a complete shift in mindset. We just need to step out of the way and allow the body to heal. So the placebo effect is when we take a medication, we understand that it's going to heal the body, or we understand that it's going to get rid of the symptom, and the body triggers a pharmacy of chemicals inside to help the body to heal. It's a phenomenal experience. And by the way, according to Bruce Lipton, the world-renowned cellular biologist, and he used to lecture at, I believe it was Harvard Medical School and other medical schools. He said a third of cases of apparent results from medication are actually from the placebo effect. And in a third of cases, they result in really horrific side effects. Let's bring this back to cancer. So, nocebo effect is similar to the placebo effect, only it's in the reverse. This is when it gets really interesting, because we, knowing the power of the mind-body connection, which is extremely real, when an authority, say an oncologist, gives us this diagnosis, and you say, you've got 6 months to live, that because we really highly regard, we're like worshipping that authority, if we believe that diagnosis, or rather the prognosis, not the diagnosis, if we accept the prognosis of that, that is enough to shut down the body. Very, very real. So effectively, you could argue that some oncologists are playing God. And I don't think that's a very good idea. So every single body is different, and they're basing those, the prognosis on statistical data. And what they're not understanding is that very person standing in front of them is a very different human, and they have their own healing abilities. For me, by the way, the whole random trial, double-blinded, all that stuff is, I get it, but when it comes to me healing my own body, I don't care. If one person has healed their body of an advanced stage cancer, I want to know exactly how they've done it, which is why I've recommended these resources: Truth About Cancer series, Radical Remission, and the Heal documentary. I want to know how that one person, I don't care if 2,000 people have done it, I want to care how that one person's done it, because if they've done it, I can do it. So the nocebo effect is the placebo effect in reverse almost. It's understanding the power of the mind-body connection and how the mind will shut down the body. And it doesn't matter if the person's ill or not. It's enough. If we trust that authority that I'm putting up there because we trust them, it's enough. So we need to, as Deepak Chopra says, he says, accept the diagnosis, but not the prognosis. So if you get diagnosed with cancer, okay, you're like, okay, thank you, symptom, for showing me something. Now I'm going to go and figure out how to heal it and essentially detoxify the entire body. That's what cancer healing is about. Because my own personal definition is cancer is a symptom of toxicity in the body and a suppressed immune system. That's basically it. And in I believe it's 95% of cases of all chronic diseases are a result of the environment that we keep in our body. Only 5% are a result of genes which are fully penetrant, meaning that it's not our choices, it's not the environment outside the body, inside the body. It's a gene that's fully penetrant, and we aren't able to change the expression of that gene. Only 5% of all chronic diseases, which means in 95% of cases, we're in complete control. Isn't that really empowering? Some people go, that's horrible, but it's actually really empowering. So we have the power to heal and reverse all the damage and detoxify the body in every way, shape and form. So I'm not going to talk about any of the systems and methods right now, but what I will say is lots of different methods: diet, exercise, supplementation, detoxification. Where could the toxicity possibly come from? Is it the environment? Is it EMFs? Is it a toxic water supply? Is it fluoride? Is it heavy metal in the teeth? Is it something alien in the body? Is it fungi, parasite, and candida? Something's causing an imbalance in the body. It could be relationships, it could be trauma, it could be emotional, it could be constant stress. There's actually 9 different things that are addressed in Radical Remission. Highly recommend a read. Could be the best thing you've ever done. So yeah, this has gone on way longer. It's almost 20 minutes. I'm not advertising my own stuff here. If what I've said is resonating, awesome. If it doesn't, that's fine too. Yeah, hit me up with any questions. And I don't personally work with people with cancer, or at least I haven't yet. If you'd like some more information, I can shed some more light, but I just recommend those 3 different resources. So go and check them out and just discover how powerful your own body is in healing, because it is. It's a self-healing machine. It's an immensely powerful self-healing machine. And I said this in a post last week on Instagram. Our ability to heal our own body is greater than anyone has ever allowed us to believe. And that's how I'll close this video. Thank you for watching.